afternoon. It is March 9th, 2026. It is 4:03 p.m. And we are here for the Board of School Directors Academic Affairs meeting. I'm Damian Johnston. I serve as the Assistant Superintendent. And as we often do at these meetings, we have a big full agenda of important spring things. Today, I'd like us to spend some time talking about some elementary program proposals. And as a return engagement, the middle school team is back to finalize some of their recommendations. So we're going to talk about that. We've asked the administrators to be present this afternoon to talk about mid-year updates towards those annual goals that we put in place. And then Dr. Yannicone and I have some proposals around our upcoming school year calendars. And so, and then of course, should there be any public comment at the end of the agenda? This afternoon, we are going to get kicked off with something that's going to seem a little odd if you've been with us for a long time, which is backing up a little on our K through 5 English language arts course overviews. And so I've asked Dr. Markle and Mr. Spiker to join me. I'm going to sort of offer some context, and then I'm going to ask them for a little bit of assistance in thinking about how ELA happens in their schools specifically. When we adopt curriculum, and it's going to come up again in a little bit later on the meeting around algebra and geometry, we start usually with an overview of the course and what we're trying to achieve, and then adopt a resource to align to that course. But when you're adopting English language arts in an elementary program, so much of the resource drives sort of how the program, the expression of the curriculum is the resource in many of the measurable ways that families and our public could see. And so what we decided was, because there was so much dense material in the resource we were adopting, it would serve us better to adopt the resource and then revisit the course overview once we were well into adoption, and then making sure that we had prioritized where we saw the greatest focus at each of our grade levels. And so tonight, what we're bringing to you is our K through 5 course overviews, which we would then post on the website for public viewing around what's happening in each of our grades at English language arts, which is strongly based on CKLA, but it's also built into the alignment of the standards and key ideas at each of the grade levels. And so in our schools, K through 5 uses CKLA as our primary resource. Dr. Markle, I'm going to go with this unless you wanted to speak about the 2 strands at your school.
Sure, I can speak about it.
Okay.
What we really liked about CKLA is there are these 2 broken strands, where one is really focusing on skills, where we're explicitly teaching phonics skills and helping students go through the stages of how to learn how to read. So that's one strand. And then the other strand, which has been really cool, is what they call the knowledge strand. And so as through this process, we've done a lot of learning and research, and read and research of the science of reading, and just how impactful building students' background knowledge and vocabulary, and such the value of strengthening their listening comprehension, along with teaching them how to read, how that all connects through the science of reading. And so this program at the K-2 level splits those up in 2. And so there's 60 minutes of dedicated time for the skills instruction, and then 60 minutes of dedicated time for the knowledge instruction. And that knowledge instruction, there's fascinating topics that our students are learning, K-2, but also K-5. And so there's like nice overlap. You'll hear our 2nd grade teachers talking about the information that our 1st graders are bringing with them. And so there is just a nice connection across K-2 and then also K-5.
Thanks, Dr. Markle. Mr. Spiker?
Yeah, and then and then in 3rd through 5th grade, and just for context, like sort of the structure of CKLA, it just happens to change at the same time that our students are transitioning from Enfield to Erdenheim. So this K235 is a CKLA thing. It's not a like Enfield Erdenheim split. In 3rd through 5th grade, those 2 strands, they come together. So there's not that like dedicated time for phonics each day. It's woven in through spelling and morphology, but an increasing focus is on reading and writing. Students doing increasingly more like independent reading on their own, reading for, like for longer and longer chunks of time. And then I'm doing a lot of writing that is always connected to the reading content. So if we're have a unit on poetry, students are doing a lot of writing of poems. If we are in fifth grade currently, there's a unit on the Renaissance. So students have a writing task where they are pretending to be either Michelangelo or Leonardo or Raphael and are writing a diary entry about their daily life and work. So it's really connected and gets increasingly complex from third, fourth, and fifth grade.
And ultimately, one of the reasons that we loved this program and what it's done for our students is really that we see those connections and that each year there's this recursive opportunity to learn more and strengthen as we move forward, right? So whether that's around word knowledge or reading complexity or writing, or that idea of that knowledge building, what students bring to the learning experience tightens and strengthens over time. So there's been some interesting discussion with our faculty this year. Last year was our first year. So obviously students last year had no prior knowledge prior to entering their new grade level. But this year, as I'm sure Dr. Markle and Mr. Spiker can share with you, is that students have entered in and picked up sort of like, oh, last year we talked about blank, now we're blank. So they're like transcending those two experiences as they learn a little and then move it forward. Either of you want to sort of give an example or something
Yeah.
that strikes you?
Yeah, I have a great example. So, fourth grade learns all about the Middle Ages, both in Europe and in the Middle East. And then one of the units in fifth grade then is they read, an age-appropriate version of the novel Don Quixote. And so students are drawing on their knowledge, of feudalism and knights and all of that from the Middle Ages, and now they're applying it in fifth grade to understanding the context and the background knowledge for this really interesting novel. Kids really just end up loving reading Don Quixote. They find it super fun, super engaging, and a big part of that is because they have the context to understand it at a deeper level.
Thanks, Pen. Meg?
Yeah, and I think on the an additional side, so thinking through of our skills lessons at K-2 level. So last year, our second grade teachers had to really spend a lot of time helping students like unlock certain sounds or understanding there's power bars. And so that tells the students potentially like how often that sound or that word is used. And so that was brand new to the second graders last year. So the second graders this year who've had that background from first grade and have already practiced unlocking some sounds or understanding that power bar, less time was needed because they were able to pick up on it because now this is their second year with this program.
So we made an intentional decision, as for those of you who've been with us for a long time know, when we made this adoption, we just really felt like it was the right avenue to move us forward. And I think ultimately what we loved when we decided to say K-5 in language arts and choosing the same resource is really looking at how students over their 6 years in elementary school can learn and build and strengthen, learn and build and strengthen year to year. And so this is just a little example of like how the learning shifts from kindergarten through grade 5 as students become not only independently able to read, but as this group knows about our sort of focus on those third grade literacy skills, really being able to then in the second part of their elementary experience, read to learn. And how can they use more sophisticated vocabulary, knowledge, academic structures to make sense out of increasingly complex text and then write and explain themselves in quality and meaningful ways. And so as I shared there, we have course overviews for each of these grades, which outlines pretty much what we just talked about, but here's what the big ideas are. Here's the guiding questions for the students so that the students and families have access to, in addition to the content resource, here's the skills that we expect students to learn while they're in K-5 language arts. Does anybody have any questions? KD?
Hello. I will say as a parent, CKLA has been totally awesome, and I see both the foundational skills aspect of it and the high interest from my parental vantage point. I think it's totally cool. A question I had was with so it's obviously I was not on the board at that time. When the 2 hours for the ELA, is that more or less or the same as what you had before?
Oh, that's a great question. We actually added a little bit more time. So in addition to at Enfield, the K to 2 level, there's the program suggests having 120 minutes of that direct instruction time, but then also an additional 30 minutes of like small group reading, and
Hmm.
that's what we also do our intervention. So we did add a little bit more time to our ELA block.
Hmm. And
To
where did that time come from?
That came from a little bit of math time and a little bit of science and social studies time at K to 2.
Thanks.
And a reason for that too, which was helpful,
Hmm.
a lot of the topics, some of the topics that we're covering during that knowledge time were also
Hmm.
crossing over to standards and information that we're learning about for science and social studies. And
Okay.
so we were able to realize like, okay, well, we can give this time back because we're covering it during the knowledge section in some situations.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
good question though.
Ben?
Yeah, and then so third grade of CKLA calls for 120 minutes as well, and then fourth and fifth grade for 90 minutes. So it looks a little bit different from grade to grade. How close we were to that pre-CKLA, it varied a little bit from grade to grade. Third didn't take a ton of shifts. Fourth and fifth, we were a little
Hmm.
bit shy of 90 minutes. So we took 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there, and we're able to get an extra 10 or 15 minutes
Hmm.
to get up to 90. It was a big thing that as we adopted the program K5, we were really committed as as an administrative team was to be able to try to set everybody up for success by saying, you
Hmm.
have the time to do the program as it's designed and not say, hey, it calls for 120, but like we can do it in 100. Let's just shave a little bit of time off
Hmm.
here, like or cut this. We wanted to
Hmm.
be able to tell teachers that we can try to implement this how it is designed,
Hmm.
and not have to, right off the bat, have to make some changes to it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'd be curious about with the new steel standards, which are not focused on content knowledge as much as practices and concepts, whether there's what the impact is on the science and I guess the social studies as well.
We'll
But there's
see.
still, yeah.
I think the greater part for us is so much of what we've loved about CKLA is the opportunity for
Hmm.
discourse and rigor, right?
Yeah.
So the way students, which are the transferable skills, and that the idea of risk
Hmm.
taking and staying with it and stamina of figuring something out and trying again. So how are those
Yeah.
skills integrated in purposeful ways? I think is the where you're going to see the greatest overlap.
Totally. That is what I was kind of wondering about whether, thank you for putting that in better words, like the overlap might not just be the content, but actually those cross-cutting concepts and skills.
Exactly. That's what I'm anticipating, but I think that's what we're going to look at next. Dr. Aberly.
Sorry, I apologise for my camera not being on. I don't know why it's not working. But my question is just broadly, kind of like maybe percentage wise, but how much of the materials are sort of like tangible books, actual writing versus kind of like electronic reading passages on a Chromebook, typing on a Chromebook? I was just kind of interested in that balance.
Thanks, Dr. Aberly.
Yeah,
Mr. Spiker,
yeah,
you
I go
want to
first.
start on the older kids?
Yeah, I would say, the vast majority are paper-based, right? So all the readings are paper-based. Each of the units has a separate student reader, has, all the stories or all the text for the unit. Every unit has a workbook. So really for us, um, kids are, almost always on paper. The stories are on the Chromebook. So maybe for a student like who has some accessibility needs, or has been absent and is trying to catch up, they are able to access everything online, but in a classroom setting, it's almost always paper-based. Students, when they are maybe typing a final draft of a more formal writing piece, that will probably be on the Chromebook so they can edit and all of that. But I don't know, 95% of the time, if you walk into a classroom here, it's paper and pencil based right now.
Great, thank you.
Great question. I'm glad you asked. Meg, you want to talk about Enfield?
Yeah, just to add, I think one of the reasons we really like this program is actually the actual tangible books that were available. And so at the K-2 level, there's student readers, that are connected to the unit. So students are holding in their hands these books and practicing reading the skills. And so I agree as well, like it is minimal. There are no like writing assignments at the K-2 level, that's all pen and paper. We have student workbooks, activity books. The nice thing is, there are interactive flip charts that teachers can project. And so specifically during knowledge, they can put up a picture, but the real emphasis is on the listening comprehension. So students have a visual, but they're sitting and listening to their teacher read the story. And sometimes we have the opportunity for the CKLA to read the story to us as well. So students get a chance to hear their teacher and then potentially maybe hear it on the computer too, but they're not, the first look is definitely like having that piece of paper, that book in their hand. That was an important piece to us.
No, I think I really appreciate the feedback. I know it's something that certainly is a hot topic in the community, how
Sure.
much time students have access to Chromebooks. So I think it's nice to have, a good balance of that. And it sounds like certainly, for this program, that is the approach. Just because it is so easy to use like so many online tools, etc., that you kind of want kids to be able to learn the language and have that opportunity to do self-exploration rather than it being a bit more prompted that you would get with, some if you were using, Word as an application to type. So no, appreciate that. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Dr. Aberle. If there are no other questions from the committee, we'd like just the okay to go ahead and post those 6 curriculum overviews onto the website for public availability.
I agree.
Great. Thank you all very much. But not to be outdone, and before Mr. Spiker and Dr. Merkel attempt to even run away, their annual presentation of their curriculum guide. I'll remind sort of newer members of the team, several years ago, we in response to parent feedback that there's a lot of invisible things that happen within our schools. Our curriculum guides, K-12, really are intended to unpack and open up for families, students, and quite frankly, faculty from other buildings, what's happening inside each of our schools and the way in which they operate in terms of meeting our academic program needs. So we have curriculum guides in grades K-8. We have one shared for elementary, and the middle school. We'll talk about theirs in a minute. And then, as you know, last month we were here with the program of studies for the high school. So today we're going to talk about the curriculum guide for the elementary group. Dr. Markle, Mr. Spiker, is there something in particular you wanted to highlight? And I'm going to open it up and sort of show the document while you talk a little. Is that okay?
Sure. Yeah, I think this has been a really helpful document, as I mentioned on the previous slide, especially for my incoming kindergarten families. It just gives such a great snapshot of what to expect or kind of experience. And then I think another a helpful factor too is to look at the lens of what's the experience of every kindergartner, every first grader, every second grader, every third grader, every fourth grader, and every fifth grader. And so I think this really captures K-5 and what they're learning about, what are the big milestones we're having, what are the events that everybody can look forward to. And so I really do think this curriculum guide provides a lot of great information for our families. Mr. Spiker and I looked at it just with another lens of any updates. We updated it a lot from last year to include all the CKLA information, always looking at the lens of new events that are happening for next year as well. And so there were minor updates, but overall, I think the bulk of it, it is there.
You're muted, my friend.
Sorry. Yeah, I would just add, yeah, like it is a living document. And I do think it is a helpful process for us each year, so like sort to go through and think through, are these things that we wrote a couple years ago, are they still true? Is there a better way to explain our current approach to instruction or recess or any of those other topics? So, like hopefully it's helpful to parents and community members, but I think it can also actually just be helpful to us to make sure that at minimum every year we're taking the time to step back and really say, does this still capture how our buildings actually are running, what students are experiencing, and what parents can expect for their child in any of our grades, K to 5.
Agreed. Members of our committee, any questions for our elementary principals?
Well, there was a section on special education. Is there also one on like gifted?
Yes. Hold on a second. I'm getting there without scrolling through here.
I think it's page 13.
Thank you.
Maybe.
Nope. It's
Oh, sorry.
yeah, it's close.
There you go.
Yes.
Okay. All right. No, thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for asking. Any concerns with us going ahead and beginning to use this document on our website and in terms of sharing it out to upcoming transition events for the elementary schools?
Looks great.
Awesome. All right. Great job, Dr. Markle. Mr. Spiker. Mr. Spiker, there's a couple notes in there for you at your convenience.
Thanks.
All right. Mr. Spiker and Dr. Marco are going to hang out for a little and take their turn sort of waiting. And I am going to bring to the front Dr. Mangano, Mrs. Brady, Mrs. Gutschall, and myself to talk a little bit about course overviews and resource adoptions. And so I sort of missed one here. Okay, I better back up. So one of the things that we talked about is that we offer algebra and geometry at both our middle school and our high school. And that actually gave us an opportunity to come up with a shared course overview that reflects both the middle school and the high school algebra and geometry courses. While the implementation or sequencing or resource might be different, the goals of the courses are the same, whether they are delivered at the middle school or the high school. Mrs. Gutschall, how'd I do?
You did great.
Okay, so I'm going to let you talk a little bit about algebra.
Okay.
If that's okay with you.
Yeah, sure. Just a little bit of a background. Currently, we are using Kendall Hunt. The most recent copyright version of that series is 2014, but really that copyright was kind of just to update and fix some errors on their part. Really, the program hasn't changed since 2002, so we were definitely a little overdue to start just kind of exploring some resources for our algebra and our geometry curriculum. And as much as that we love Kendall Hunt, it was time to kind of explore some options as the learners in front of us has certainly changed over the last few years. So our algebra course, we definitely went in with the idea of looking at targeting our Keystone Algebra 1 standards, which we selected from our Carnegie curriculum, definitely targets every one of those Keystone Algebra 1 standards, like our linear, exponential, and quadratic functions. And the biggest thing that we were looking for with this series, like the one we currently are using, we really wanted to use that investigative approach with students, especially for our algebra and geometry kids, using some investigations and incorporating a lot of math discourse where students are really able to talk with each other about that math in our classrooms. And Carnegie really does a wonderful job. We looked at least 5 different curriculums and really dug deep with them. And we really, as a math department here at the middle school, really felt that this program is going to work really well with the learners that are in front of us.
So Mrs. Gutschall is providing lots of information all at the same time. So let me break it down. So we are adopting a course overview for algebra, which is shared in the clickable link that sort of talks about the algebra course and what students will get from it. We also have one for geometry, sort of that looks at the skills and the concepts being acquired during those two courses and the guiding essential questions. Assuming that that is aligned to sort of the agreeable to the group, those would get posted as public facing for our algebra course. Again, whether you take it at the middle school or the high school, the two math departments had a chance to review them just to make sure they reflected the course. Then our next part of that was we were in need of a new resource at the middle school. And so using these descriptions, finding a way to carefully review the resources that are available, which quite frankly was fewer than we might have anticipated. There are fewer and fewer publishers who were making these materials. And so we had to really do our due diligence to take a look carefully and not get swayed by the song and dance and all the bells and whistles. And so the team has done their due diligence and is bringing a recommendation also for the purchase of an 8-year agreement with Carnegie Learning. Are there questions? Resource is here. The idea is that we would purchase it for 8 years for student and teacher materials, both hard copy and digital, for a cost of $59,528.46. And then we would add supplemental service for on-site coaching and implementation for $14,000. So assuming Mrs. Gutschall and her team took a lot of time to really dig into, ask lots of questions, sit through presentations, look at hard copies, look at digital materials, and really think about what promoted for our learners sort of the best pathway to advanced mathematics as they work through algebra and geometry. Did I miss anything, Liz?
No, I think that targets
Karen or Amy, anything from your end? Okay. Members of the committee, are there questions for us on any or all of this?
Yes, sorry, I'm raising my hand.
I got you.
So how big of a shift for teachers and students will a focus? I'm assuming if your materials currently are from 2002, we're going to need more of a focus on conceptual understanding versus procedural fluency. How big of a shift do you anticipate that for teachers, students, and families, and how will you communicate that shift?
Liz?
Well, that's a great question. I mean, it's definitely going to be a learning curve for the teachers. We're actually already in touch with Carnegie. We actually did a summer overview with Carnegie as well. So like us as teachers, we actually got to sit down and experience what it feels like to be in a lesson as a student, which was a really neat experience. But as far as like the conceptual, algebra is algebra. And when it comes down to it, the standards, like we're targeting those standards, it will be a little bit of a shift for us. We also felt like this curriculum with our new schedule, we're going from 80-minute blocks to 67-minute blocks. So we felt like this curriculum also is going to allow us to target those standards and better in that time frame as well. So I think it will take a little bit of time, but I definitely know that with that coaching that we're gonna be able to get with Carnegie, I think that we'll be able to roll this out as smooth as we can as teachers. And what they're gonna have a consumable, kind of like how they're used to having with the Envision series. And then they'll have that online platform that they're also kind of used to having from the Envision series. So we're hoping that it would be actually like a smoother transition versus like that physical or like that completely immersed digital online experience that we have been using with Kendall Hunt.
I was just going to say, can I add? Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
just to add to that, I think that Liz, you also do a an incredible job as a department coordinator that I see in our building with our teachers. So there's a great alignment not only at the grade level but vertically, 6 through 8. It's a very cohesive, very tight department they meet consistently. They are at every meeting, they are reviewing how they're doing things. I know that this summer when they participated in that summer session, I heard so much feedback from the presenter about our teachers. So as far as a transition, I think we're well equipped because I think we're in great hands with Liz leading us and our teachers truly. And I think that they work really well together to help bring our kids and families along. So I'm not concerned, but I know that they dig in and they're already digging in. So I feel like we're going to make that transition pretty easily. And from our coaches, I think our coaches do a lot to help us as well. Thanks, Meg. I do. And that's another part of this. So not worried.
Awesome. Yeah, I think the Carnegie coaching is going to be real key.
Yep.
Are you expecting to front load that mostly in the first couple of years?
Oh yeah.
We're going to do
like
onboarding for the
distribute it.
resource this spring, and then they'll do 2 days of coaching in the fall and 2 days of coaching in the spring at the recommendation of the publisher.
Awesome. Thank you. Good luck.
Thanks. Dr. Aberly?
Can we go back to the cost? So just so I'm really clear, it looked like it was like 59,000? Is that 59 over 8 years or 59 every year for 8 years?
It's a great question. Over 8 years.
59,000 over 8 years. And just another question about the coaching, right? So it sounds like there's a lot of coaching this year, but what happens when new teachers join? Is there an opportunity, like I'm guessing this 14,000 is like a one and done, right? Once you've done those days, that's it. Is there an opportunity, like do they run courses in the future that new teachers could go on, or do you get to keep those materials? Just trying to understand how you get that kind of longevity piece.
That's a great question. So there's some strands to what you asked. So I think one of the beauties of our middle school and high school departments is, unlike when we talk about elementary and it's K through 5 and it's all of the teachers, there are a targeted number of math teachers at the middle school. So they are each other's best support in terms of some of that sharing of knowledge and resources. So I think that's a strength to the program, is their interconnection and their regular and ongoing meetings with one another. That said, the purchase here is for the first year. We can purchase additional time if we think it's necessary. I'll remind sort of our members that we have a full-time instructional coach who targets her areas in mathematics. So she's here to provide ongoing implementation or problem-solving support to the team. But quite frankly, they are their best advocates in asking for more or different help in the event that it is needed. Mrs. Gutschall is not one to sit on waiting or her laurels. She is one to dig in and figure it out. That said, they've been doing this Carnegie work for the last year. We had the opportunity to participate in a grant with the IU, which was not related to the Carnegie materials in terms of teaching and learning. It was a program agnostic, meaning being able just to practice discourse and problem solving in real time. And so the team as a department all participated in that training, brought it back, wrestled it through, did some additional coaching when it was offered to them. So I feel like we have a really solid foundation on which to build.
My next question is, do we know, I mean, it sounds like a great program. Do we know of other districts locally or, even within the county that use this program and have spoken, about the quality of it?
Mrs. Gutschall?
Yeah, so actually, we were very fortunate. One of our math department teachers, her sister's using it in a local district. They just implemented it a year ago. So we had a really great conversation with that district to kind of really learn the ins and outs with them, which also helped us kind of make our decision when looking through some curriculum. And I think they're going to be a great resource for us as well to kind of bounce back and forth ideas on what's worked for them and what we can do to make it work for our students as well.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that information.
Of course.
So with support from this committee, I'd like to be able to submit a motion for a vote for purchase of this resource. We would make the purchase this spring so that we could do our teacher training this spring, and then the rollout to students would begin in the fall. Is that agreeable to the committee?
Before we do that, Dr. Johnson, I just have one more question. What is the difference in cost between the current math program we have?
Well, it's a little complicated for me to give you that answer because the program we had, as Mrs. Gutschall said, was from 2002. And so
Okay.
we're only purchasing the digital product at this point because the other is not available to us.
Okay.
So I can't do an apples for apples comparison, but I can tell you that the cost of this license is over the number of years for the number of students for whom we need it is comparable to our CKLA purchase.
That's a great benchmark. No, and it seems reasonable. So
I could
no,
give you the exact dollar figure
Yeah.
if I take a break for a second, but I don't have it sitting right in front of me. But I did compare it with Mrs. Green to make sure that I was within my allocation in my decisions. Trying to
that's
use my
great.
words. I
No.
wanted to be judicious
Yeah, no,
in our
appreciate that.
purchasing.
No, appreciate that because I think community is always interested in how the costs stack up. So thank you so
Absolutely.
much for sharing that.
Of course. So are we agreeable to posting the algebra and geometry course overviews and taking the motion to the board for a vote for the purchase of the product?
Yes, please. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Mrs. Gutschall, you are welcome to stay and hang out with us, but the middle school team is going to talk about their curriculum guide. So it's up to you what you'd like to do. But we appreciate you being here. If I didn't say this at the beginning, Mrs. Gutschall is the department coordinator for mathematics at the middle school and mathematics champion in terms of helping to advocate on helping us think through clear process and provide leadership. And I'll be roping her into helping us with our new K-8 project for grade level mathematics any day now.
Looking forward to it. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Mrs. Gutschall. Have a great afternoon. Thanks for being here. Dr. Mangano, Mrs. Brady, I believe it is all you.
Yes, we are back. Thank you.
You got it.
So in similar fashion to our colleagues at the elementary level, our curriculum guide, chock full of information, but what we thought it would be important to do is highlight the big changes. We did a lot of work last year in, I think, revamping and renovating and revising that document. We look at it from the lens as educators, and we have this EduSpeak all the time, but are we really relating to students, which I'm not sure we're there yet, but adults and families, and making sure that it's something that they can pick up and read. So on this slide, you're going to notice that we have bulleted some of the changes for next year that include the schedule, as was mentioned by Liz. So it's a 6-block daily schedule. 4 core will meet every single day, which is a big change for us. So ELA, math, science, and social studies, all having the same amount of time, 67 minutes a day. All classes will meet every day for 67 minutes. WIN this year is at the end of the day, as we spoke at one of our other meetings. And again, this is all in our guide. It's staggered. We're making the schedule less complicated by really keeping it simple, just an AB, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. So that eliminates all that AB language for social studies and science. And then the last bullet pertains to the way that we will be having gifted support next year, as we will have a dedicated gifted support teacher. Some of the impacts that you're going to see out of some of the changes throughout our guide is that we are really continuing our focus from the last 2 years and again next year on the increase in that daily core instruction. It's where tier 1 is. It's where the impact of all the real learning and the high impact for our students really needs to be in that focus. A consistent pacing that we're going to be working on with our teams, and a balanced daily schedule.
And just to clarify one small thing about the staggered win, right now our win's at the end of the day. The entire school goes to win at the same time. What staggered mean is that our grade level wins will be at a different time each day. And that allows for smaller sizes of groupings to come together, whether that's to get intervention, whether that's to get enrichment or support. And then we do have some shared staff that serve every single grade level. Staggering this allows them to have more capacity in their day to see more students over a week's long time.
Thank you. Next slide, please.
Whoops, clicking the wrong button. There you go.
And specifically for our electives, a lot of this, you've seen us many times over the past couple of months, so a lot of this is a little bit of a refresher. But what we highlight is for our elective, we have 1 block a day, and that's a 1 to 2 day rotation, 22 classes per marking period, and 2 specials per marking period. Each marking period, students would get 2 new specials. And to fill this out, we put 3 new courses, the Success Lab, Life Online, and Change Makers. And we're really hoping that we'll really fill out our students' schedule, getting them really strong foundations of what they need to be successful. We have choice in 7th and 8th grade. In 6th grade, we're going to have exposure to all of our courses. There's one small adjustment that we made from our last presentation. After getting additional information and some creative thinking, we went back and looked and were able to kind of embed our ensembles into our school days for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, which is a little bit of an adjustment and a change. And great partnerships with our music individuals to come up with some creative ways that we can embed that into the day, with being able to expose our 6th graders to all of the specials that we do offer, which is phenomenal, and what we think is best for kids.
And just in terms of next steps, obviously pending board approval, where we're headed and what we're already working on and getting ready for spring, because besides spring sports, it's spring scheduling season. So it's really kind of taking a look at our students, meeting with, we have the benefit of having these 2 transitions. So we have 5-6 transition that we're working on, and 8-9 transition we're working on, 2 very, very big years. So we're going to be talking to kids about course selection and scheduling. We will be having parent information nights, which are already in our SMORE in terms of when those are for grades 5 to 6, and actually our current 6th and 7th grade families. Again, working on transitions for all of our students in grades 5 through 9. It's a big chunk of time, and looking at that master schedule development after we gather all that input from our students, and again, supporting both our teachers and students during the transition, because while all this is going on internally, as all of you know, we still have a construction project we are working on. So just lots happening in our already busy place, and very, very grateful that we have great staff who are just continuing to ride that wave with us. So busy spring ahead.
Any questions or comments for Dr. Mangano and Mrs. Brady as they sort of finally take all of these things we've been talking about for months and roll them into practice as we plan for next year? Katie?
Right. Real quick, you were saying before we were going to have the 6th graders do their music outside of, not their music, but their band or chorus outside of school day, but we figured out how to do it in the school day. That's great. That's my comment.
Thank
Awesome.
you.
They're excited too. Our teachers are excited too. Thanks for asking. Okay, to move forward and post that document and start sharing it at our upcoming 6th grade orientation and back to school sessions, planning sessions. Good to go?
Yes.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Okay. Great. Thanks. Okay, moving right along to our last big agenda item, and then Dr. Yannicone and I have a sort of smaller one, is we'd like to, every year, as many members of the board know, we write our areas of goal and improvement to sort of our focus on continuous improvement and how to move us forward. And so, as you know, we believe that sort of actions drive focus, right? And so we have 2 district strategic goals around student achievement and staff development, which we have talked about a lot. And in the fall, we invited all our administrators to come share with all of you a peek behind the curtain as how they were going to address these areas in their local context. And we've invited them back tonight to sort of give you an update. Where are we? We are sort of a little more than halfway through the year, but we want to make sure that we've sort of shared with you how our trajectory has come. So each of the 4 building principals is here this evening, as well as I'm going to represent sort of the Office of Teaching and Learning at the end. So as always, I don't think you can read this, like I know that, but it's here in case you want to. That's everybody's all together. And then we're going to start with Enfield, talking about sort of their goals on student achievement and staff development and where they are. Dr. Markle, as always, we start with the little people.
Yep. Hi, everybody again. Thank you. Yeah, so our student achievement goal, obviously, we want to make sure that we're continuing to help students progress in the area of English language arts. And so we just talked a lot about CKLA. And so on the screen here, you're looking at that 2 lines. The BOI stands for beginning of the year, and then that wise middle of the year. And so I just thought, even if just looking at the visual, um, seeing the blue and the green, that's a percentage of students that are meeting or exceeding where we need them to be. And so there's really great growth from the beginning of the year to the middle of the year. And we really attribute that to, year two implementation of CKLA. We're continuing with our weekly planning meetings with our teachers, making sure that they're still understanding instruction and talking through problems of practice together. We're reviewing student progress and assessments and helping to make decisions of how to continue to meet the needs of the students. When we give these DIBELS assessments in the beginning, middle, and end of the year, that also helps us to determine which students might need more targeted support. And so when we determine which students might need that targeted support, we're providing that tier 2 reading interventions through our reading specialists and also our reading aides as well. And that's our first goal of student achievement. And then our second staff development goal, we've talked about it before, is we really have a unique opportunity. We're teaching our K-2 population. And so we spent a lot of work talking about what are some of the trends we're seeing for our K-2 learners, and really looking at different milestones that students and children ages 5 to 8 experience, and then how can we use that information to help us teach our students. And so we've had really strong conversations at our monthly faculty meetings and our professional learning community meetings, and even just department grade level meetings as well. And so we want to continue that work. So when we talk about next steps, we want to continue what we're doing. So in terms of student achievement, we have identified right now students that need an additional tier 2 support for reading. But something else that is new that we've been able to implement is also looking at some tier 2 behavior supports. And through the work with our school counselor and our multi-tiered systems of support inclusion coach as well, we are providing some tier 2 supports to help students work on their executive functioning skills, perhaps maintaining attention, or some problem solving skills. And so we're excited to continue those tier 2 groups for behavior, while we're also still learning as a staff. We've surveyed our staff to help us understand where they want to learn more. And so some upcoming topics we're talking about is emotional regulation and helping them maintain attention. Another area that is continuing to pop a little bit more is even some fine motor skills. And so we're employing our resources at the school level and working with instructional coaches and working our different coaches and providing some professional development sessions on professional development days, but even faculty meeting and PLC meeting time. So we're going to continue. We don't feel the need to alter those 2 goals right now. We're going to continue that work and focus for this year of Enfield.
Thanks, Dr. Markle. Any questions or comments for Dr. Markle about what's been happening at Enfield? All right. Thanks, Dr. Markle.
Thanks.
Mr. Spiker, you want to talk about what's happening at Erdenheim?
Absolutely. So we really had 2 big areas of focus this year, similar to Enfield, where to continue to focus on year 2 of implementation of CKLA, and then also put some energy into refreshing and improving our WIN or intervention time. So we've done a bunch of work in both those areas. Continued those same structures around CKLA from last year, where we have weekly planning meetings with each of our grade teams, frequent administrator walkthroughs to see instruction and action, have in the meetings and the walkthroughs and feedback, having all those inform each other. So we're really supporting teachers in that second year implementation. I'm making sure that as we get increasingly familiar with that program, we're continuing to raise the bar and challenge students more and more. And then on WIN, we did a bunch of work just to really to norm on our vision for the intervention time, both in a pull-out setting, so in special education groups, in a reading center at our math center, but also for students who are in homerooms during WIN time, how to have that time be more differentiated and more targeted at all levels. So we did a bunch of work to to organize all that data, to create groups again for pullout and for in the classroom. So we could say to every single student is getting some kind of targeted instruction each day during WIN. So far, we've seen a really nice increase on our Linkit winter score. So if you look at our scores from this winter to last winter across the building, and they're up 11 points from last year. Dibbles, as you see, a similar slide from Enfield, where some increase from the beginning of the year as well. And then our next steps for the rest of the year, the first has actually already happened, where we looked at the middle of the year data, reanalyzed all the data, made new groups for WIN, dug into some of our mid-year data. To see, for example, we saw on Dibbles that our students had very strong results in their accuracy in their oral reading, but there were some gaps in our fluency. So we talked as a team about how to increase fluency practice during WIN based on that Dibbles mid-year results. And then I'm also using Linkit to target specific standards and skills as we head into PSSA's season, and then just really continue those structures and routines and PLCs and content team meetings to make sure that teachers have the support, the guidance, the collaboration, and the teamwork to keep these structures up and running in a strong way all the way through the very end of the year.
Thanks, Mr. Spiker. Any questions or comments for Mr. Spiker about Erdenheim and their progress this year so far? Dr. Aberle, were you unmuting or just?
No, I was just saying I have no comments.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Dr. Markle, Mr. Spiker, I appreciate you being here. You're welcome, of course, to stay and hear the secondary reports also. Dr. Mangano, do you want to talk about middle school?
Sure do. Okay. You've heard me mention a couple of times, and you just heard it in our curriculum guide presentation, this idea of tier 1 and core instruction. All of that has been under the guise of this MTSS framework, and it's interesting to listen to Meg and Ben because we're continuing that framework, those tiered instruction, launching pads, and we're doing the same kind of work. It just looks different at the middle level. So again, since I was here last year, we started that work with the intermediate unit. Actually, we were getting some, really great coaching in terms of what an MTSS framework is, and working with our own Office of Teaching and Learning, because we look at that as how we fit in with the district, of course. But we have ongoing benchmark data review that we do with teachers when we sit and we look at what does the data tell us about progress and growth. We have established intervention and data teams. We are continuing to refine this process as we move along. We are also, as Ben mentioned too, we're doing a lot of work with WIN, which has over time taken on many different phases. And the hope is that we continue to refine that. So we're truly looking at tiered support for our students during that time period. And one of the things I think we've done a good job this year is really targeting these walks. So myself, Karen, and Marcy actually have used time for walkthroughs in 2 different ways. One, to look at what's happening in classrooms in terms of small group instruction and UDL approaches, but also to look at how is WIN working? How is intervention working, and what is happening during that time? So our hope is to take that data at the end of the year and really next year refine that, especially as Kieran mentioned, those WIN periods will be, I'm doing like this, like they're staggered, right? So they're at one grade level, it meets at a time. When you have the whole building at one time, it's a very cumbersome act to kind of schedule an entire building at the same time. So we hope to make that a little more refined and a little more, have that ability to get down and dirty into that smaller student groups, if you will. The other piece of this is aligning PD so that teachers can be better equipped to do what they need to do to meet the needs of our kids. So we really have to look at next year how we're taking PD time. And PD for us really takes on the lens of not just professional development days. We use our department meeting time. We use faculty meeting time. We use grade level meeting time. It's all throughout the day and really taking that time period to provide teachers, again, with what they need to be better equipped to meet the needs of kids. We consistently ask them for feedback. What do they need? How can we make that time more efficient for them? And then we really want to look to refine all of our goals so that we are moving the needle with our students in terms of achievement and raising that rigor, not only for kids, but for our staff. And again, it all comes back to that core instruction and what's happening within those 4 core periods during the course of the day.
Thanks, Dr. Mangano. Hopefully the members of our community on our board are seeing like how these things are stranded together and connected, but we're all focused, while it's individual in our context, unified in our approach to targeting the acquisition of skills for our students and supporting our staff in doing so. Any questions for Dr. Mangano?
Questions?
Nope.
Thank you. Dr. Mangano, as always, I appreciate you being here yet again with us. And so if you are welcome to stay, of course.
Thank you.
Or not. Dr. Rittenhouse, last but not least, of course, is our high school.
Patience is not my virtue, as some of you know on the call. So
Great job. Thanks for waiting us out.
Amy, thanks for laughing at my joke. I appreciate it. I saw you. So good afternoon, everybody. Our building goals and action steps at the high school. As you see, we break it down where we are now and our next steps. We've completed extensive professional development for formative and summative assessment for teaching staff. We're continually examining student grades. They're assigned if you have a D or an F, or you're interested in doing better or in the class. You are assigned to lunch and learn office hours, which actually technically is an office half hour. Teachers have a 30-minute lunch and a 30-minute time with the teacher, and that's not always just learning, like getting help. If you're the track coach or football coach, you have kids in your class, but you're in your room, as you know. If you're a newer parent on the call, they're there for 30 minutes every day. We redesigned the program of studies, which we reviewed last week, and I just think just more accessible per se. Every high school's program of studies is pretty massive, and we're just trying to make it more user friendly. We're always looking to change curriculum night, which is this Thursday, to publicize student access opportunities. I was really excited to back to school night. We went virtual and really greatly increased our numbers at back to school night, and also was a snowy, cold night. There was a lot of snow on the ground, so that was not my plan, but it worked out. But just looking on how we can do curriculum night differently, and having more staff available, students, the school counselors will be there, and we're always looking to get better there. Next steps: we have completed professional development and continue to complete professional development, habits of learning. We will complete that in the spring. Habits of learning is kind of the third component of the grading. Summative is 60%, formative is 30%, habits of learning is 10%. That's 60, 30, 10. I've been really proud of the staff and the students of how they've embraced that you consistently know what your grading will be as a student. 60 summative, 30 formative, and then 10% habits of learning, which has really been wonderful and matches the middle school to that 60, 30, 10 breakdown. We've formalized the notification of families for lack of attendance. That's an email home. We didn't like a phone call in the middle of the day from the high school at 10:40 saying that your child missed their physics lunch and learn. So that's a more nuanced notification. And teachers reach out all the time. I reach out all the time. I get to see who is in lunch and learn every day, as does the staff. And then, we now have our benchmark data, as we look at, our test results, second half of the year. We have grades, attendance, keystone scores. So we should look at all the time. Next slide, please, Dr. J.
That should be it. That's it for you.
Okay.
Thanks, Dr. Rittenhouse.
Thank you.
Any questions or comments? Dr. Aberle?
Yeah, I have a question around the notification around non-attendance at the lunch and learn office hours. Is that like a big problem across the board, or is it, you're just trying to help keep an eye on the students? Just trying to understand like the scope of the attendance issue.
I'm proud of our attendance rates at Lunch and Learn. Of course, being the overbearing and slightly corny principal here on the back nine here, I'd want 100% attendance every day. That doesn't always happen. I would say a vast majority of our kids go to Lunch and Learn during the week to improve their grade. Do they need to be there all 5 days to make up a grade? That they do not. But yeah, I would. I run in fact, I just shredded the report from last week while I was waiting here. By Thursday, we'll have a 10, maybe 12 kids who didn't go to Lunch and Learn for the week. And then of those, they raised their grade on Monday, didn't need to be there every day, or they were just not, not to be there. There just was a mistake or whatever, but very few kids. But like I said, the kids who aren't going, I speak to the school counselor, I speak to the teacher, I call home all the time. But I'm proud of our attendance rates. We don't run strict attendance reports because, like I said, teachers don't take attendance every day because they're really busy during this period. But that part has been, a real source of pride, particularly the last couple of years when we came out of when we come out of COVID, and the of course the natural consequences you fail. So that's a pretty good motivator. I'm really proud of our 100% graduation rate the last 2 years for the senior class. You have if you go to Lunch and Learn every day as a kid, you have 90 hours of extra help, 30 minutes a day times 180 days. I hope that answers the question, but it's not like you're late during the day or you miss a day. It's not as kind of direct as that. I mean,
No, that's actually really helpful because it sounds like, you're right that we should be proud of the level of attendance and, that kind of opportunity that's available for the students. It sounds like pretty much all of the students are taking advantage of that. So, I think that sounds great. That was way less students not attending than I was anticipating. So
and
thank
it
you
could
for that.
also be, yeah, and it could also be a half hour or 15 minutes. It's
Sure.
just I have to do these three problems, or I have to do corrections on my quiz or corrections on my test. And the teachers who are wonderful with it, they'll rotate you out and be like, "Hey, Lee, thank you. You're done. You're done. You did your test corrections. You're certainly welcome to stay." But our kids have embraced it, and like I said, the staff, and every couple of weeks I'll send a note like, "Hey, if there's a kid who really needs to absolutely be at Lunch and Learn, we send in danger of failing surveys out all the time." But yeah, that part has been good. And then if you don't go, you get an email at home as a family.
That's great. Thanks for that context,
Of
Dr.
course.
Richards.
I think the goal continues to be, as we progress through the years, that we're increasing that independence and agency within our students, regardless of their pathways after high school graduation. They're going to have to be able to advocate for themselves, take action, seek resources and support. So I think year to year, we've seen an increase in students starting to understand and take advantage of the wealth of opportunities that they have at Lunch and Learn, up to and including the motivation to be with their friends. And so sometimes doing work you don't feel like doing, or getting it finished, or catching up on things in order to hang out with your friends at lunch is a motivator. And so I think it has worked effectively in lots of ways. And I think our students have told us that in every way possible.
The greatest motivator of all is, "Hey, Chuck, you've missed it 2 days in a row. I'm going to email your teacher right now." And I email it from the hallway on my carts out, my rolling carts outside. But I'm like, if you miss again, I'll call home because I want you to do well in class. I mean, it's as simple as that. But Dr. J's right. That motivation to be able to play basketball, to eat lunch with your friends, to go see a teacher who you may be working on a project. It's a great motivator. It's exceeded my expectations. I'm really proud of the system that we've put together, my staff and I put together. So,
Gus?
Yeah, if I could, I just want to add on to Dr. Itz's response.
Mhm.
For you guys who aren't in the building, Lunch and Learn, it kind of works itself out naturally, where like you're only assigned a teacher's Lunch and Learn if you're failing or in danger of failing. So it sort of regulates itself where if I'm skipping my assigned lunch and learn, my grades get even worse, and then all of a sudden I'm missing sports or missing my extracurriculars. So it's less of a problem than you would think, just because like it it sort of has to self-regulate because it's all based on like failing grades.
Thanks, Gus.
Thanks,
Yeah, I
Gus.
think it's a good social contract, right? Do what you need to do and get your work done. And here's a resource and support to help that to occur. And if you don't need that time, you can use it in ways that to join clubs or activities or check in with your friends or other teachers for other opportunities or advising. Any questions for Dr. Rittenhouse or Gus on the high school? All right, thank you. And last but not least, in my office, I represent the Office of Teaching and Learning, which we house student services, support services, and of course, the work I do in curriculum and instruction. Central Office's position in the Office of Teaching and Learning is to support our buildings and our principals and our faculty in implementing all the things that they're talking about. Or components of that program. So for special education and student services, really trying to create clear, more transparent offerings and pathways around special education services and making that available using data to help drive decision-making and recommendations on the supports students might need or the level of service for particular items. And then converting that into IEP look-fors. How can building administrators know exactly what to look for if they walk into a learning support math class or when they walk into an emotional support classroom? And how can we continue to make that the idea of how much time more visible and understandable and comprehensible to our families? So that's their next step. In support services, Dr. Lutz's office, she's really working with our administrators, as they've talked about a lot today, MTSS and instructional coaches, and how does that work for our ELD, our English language development program? How are we making sure that decisions that we're making are based in data? How is referral for additional supports based in data and performance, and then recognizing where growth is occurring? And Dr. Lutz is going to continue to work with the building administrators and her staff to build up that training and inform those MTSS teams. How are we using trauma-informed approaches and recognizing what kids bring to the table? How are we thinking about progress in our tiered instruction? So continuing to do that work in collaboration with the building principals as she meets with them throughout the year. And last but not least, my piece of this is a little more unique, which is my job is to support the principals in doing all the things that they talked about. And so this year I had the opportunity in the fall, and I'm going to do it again this spring, to do paired walkthroughs with each of the building administrative teams, taking a look at the instruction that we're having in our schools. Is it meet sort of where we want it to be, and how can I support them in getting there? And then using that information, what we found this fall was really continuing to strengthen sort of that intellectual engagement, looking specifically at discourse, dialogue, questions, and that the students are provoking and promoting, as well as sort of that active cognitive engagement, sort of thinking outside the box and applying things into new contexts. And throughout the spring, we're going to do it again and take a look at even continuing to refine that data collection to help look at, are we doing the things in our classrooms that we say in these reports that we are working towards? And so the Office of Teaching and Learning has made some nice progress this first part of the year, looking forward to the second part. Any questions or comments from me on that? Oops. Awesome. Dr. Yannicka, I'm going to let you talk.
Thanks, Dr. Johnston. If you'll advance the slide, just one, I'll talk a little bit about our annual review of the calendar. And so, as you know, or maybe perhaps you don't know, but we have been trying to stay 3 years out on the planning for the school calendar. And so we have 2 calendars that will show you that have actually been previously approved, and that's next year's and the following year's calendars. And then we have 28, 29, a draft to review with you. And if this committee approves, we will bring it to the full board next week for board approval. So over the last few years, and I'll just ask you to open up 26, 27 if you don't mind, because I think it'll be easier if they see it. Over the last few years, we have continued to utilize feedback from parents and families and students with regard to how the calendar flows from year to year. You may recall that last year, the state of Pennsylvania provided flexibility for the first time in that it was always 180 days and 900 or 990 hours. And they made the choice to give us the or. So you could have either 180 days or 900 or 990 hours, depending on elementary and secondary. And that afforded us a great deal of flexibility because as a district, our daily hours are quite high. And so we have some flexibility in the total number of school days. So we have shifted to 178 school days. You'll see that in very tiny print underneath the key. Thanks, Dr. Johnston. We have utilized 178 days in order to hit several parameters that are of strong interest to our community. The first is, where possible, to have a full week of spring break and to be finished by no later than the second Friday in June, the second full week in June. So you'll see on next year's calendar, if we go all the way down to the bottom of the calendar there and you see the month of June, we are finishing our last student day on June 10th next year, Thursday, June 10th. And we have a full week of spring break, which next year is, and I'm looking up because I too need my glasses to see where I'm looking. We'll be looking at that
March 22nd through the 26th.
Thank you, Dr. Johnson. I really need to get a new prescription, or to make the screen larger for myself. So full week of spring break.
Is that better?
Yes, thank you. A full week of spring break and to be completed by the second Friday in June. Those are two high priorities. The third priority for the community is to continue to have family conferences in both the fall and spring, and where possible over the Thanksgiving holiday week to hold those conferences such that families can get in and get an update after the first few months of school. The one thing we are not able to do for the next 2 years, which is another priority of families, is start after Labor Day. And the reason for that is that Labor Day starts quite late in the next 2 school years. Next year is as late as it can go, which is Tuesday, September 8th. So you'll see for next year and the following year, we will actually start school prior to Labor Day in order to hit that June date. And in looking at those two priorities, several things come up. One is that many families utilize summer educational programming or extracurricular programming that begins in the third week of June. And the second is that many families have vacations that they have for a very long time started in that third week of June. And for graduating seniors, many colleges and universities actually start offering their visitation days in that third week of June. And so, we've made the move several years ago to get the calendar approved for before Labor Day. And you'll see Dr. Johnston is circling August 31st, which is the first day of school for the coming school year. That's a fancy trick, Dr. Johnston. Thank you very much for the assist. And so the teachers will return the 24th. One of the reasons why we have less concern about starting before Labor Day is that many of our families are already back because we have such a high percentage of our students at the secondary level, in particular at the high school, who play a fall sport. And those sports this coming summer will start the 10th of August. And so families have to be back very early anyway. So there's some of the key factors. The other factor that we have tried to maintain over the last few years is to hold several in-service half days in order to allow us to maintain a solid number of total hours at our elementary and secondary level, but to provide some in-service opportunities on days that seem to make sense. For example, this coming fall, October 30th. We've gotten a lot of positive feedback from families that to have a half day on the day of Halloween is very helpful to them in their planning for family life. We also have some half days related to family conferences, and that's to allow for accessibility of our staff, as well as to continue to have some school time on those conference days. So that's how 26, 27 looks. If we pop back out and jump into 27, 28.
Hold on a second. Me and my
Yes,
cool
ma'am.
tool. Now, me and my cool tool are not working. All right, I got it now.
I understand. So for 27, 28, for the second year, we do have a late Labor Day. And so with it being the 7th, once again, we have us starting before Labor Day. However, we are trying to avoid going too far into that month of August. So that year is the earliest we will start in the approaching years, with the 30th being the first day of school for students. I'm sorry, the first being the first day of school for students. Apologize. And we're splitting the week so that there's only 2 student days, September 1st and 2nd of that week prior to Labor Day. And then the teachers are able to come back the 25th and have like a little bit one week and a little bit the next week. But at the end of the year, we continue to have a full week for spring break, and we continue to be done. If we scroll down, we are finished June 9th. So once again, no later than the second Friday in June, providing that opportunity to families. So this coming year, if I jump out of that, the good news is Labor Day shifts very nicely. And I know, Miss Bell, you are going to be thrilled to see this for someone's senior year. So that year, Labor Day is the 4th, and so school can start Tuesday, September 5th. And so many school districts in the region are starting to use what's called the 4-5 rule, which basically says that if Labor Day is the 4th or earlier, we will start after Labor Day. And if Labor Day is the 5th or later, we'll start before. And that essentially gets everybody to the same goal, which is to be completed on our calendar year by the second Friday in June. And so once again, for 28, 29, we have a completion date of June 12th. And you'll see that that's a few days numerically after the previous 2 years. But once again, early in the year, early in June. And then we have a full week of spring break. And if you scroll up, Dr. Johnson, we've held in November the same conference schedule that we have for the next 2 years. We've held our family conferences in the spring. And several years ago, we also added a travel day on December 23rd, and that has gotten some very good feedback. And so this year coming up, this 28, 29, we have it on the 22nd. But many families do go away over that long winter break. And so we've gotten some really positive feedback on providing that opportunity, not only for families, but also for staff. And so I'm happy to answer any questions. I haven't covered, I think, every element of what we discussed in the calendar, but these calendars have been reviewed. This calendar in particular, the new calendar, has been reviewed by the full administrative team, and it's also been brought to advisory. So we're happy to have gotten some parent feedback and family feedback. So, KD.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
Fully understand that balancing all of those different priorities into a real life schedule is a humongous undertaking. I do want to share some feedback that I got from constituents. It's really like the number one thing that people told me when I was meeting people, and that's about the number of half days that we have. In particular, the consecutive half days in a row. It's hard for people to understand why that couldn't be one full day and one off day. Some challenges that I heard shared were that it's more difficult to find childcare for 2 half days than for one full day. And concern about, how much is getting done in school on a half day versus a regular full day. I will also say that some districts in the area have found significant cost savings, reducing the number of half days because you don't have to bus the kids twice. You only have to bus them once. So I just wanted to share that feedback with you, not to put up any roadblocks or barriers, but something to consider for the future.
Sure.
As
Thank you,
I'm
KD.
sure you already do.
No, I appreciate that. I understand the feedback on the half days. I'm assuming that's related to conference days and not, for example, like Enfield starts with half days in September in order to orient the kids and just build
Yeah,
up
no,
their
sorry, not
stamina.
talking about that.
Yeah, I'm thinking about what are the consecutive half days. It would be those first 2 days for Enfield, and then we have a couple of half days in a row, Thanksgiving week.
In November, and then I guess again, like in March, you have the 2 Fridays, or not literally consecutive, but
2 Fridays in a
Yes.
row. Mhm.
Yeah, and I hear that feedback. We could certainly look at full days for conferences. One full day for conferences. I will say that we have fewer conferences scheduled on the second Friday in March because families are more interested in booking up that first one because they like going into the break.
Well, maybe if there was more time.
Uh, That's possible. I don't understand
Mhm.
the comment about busing. We only
Me
bus,
either.
we bus in the morning and then we bus in the afternoon,
Mhm.
whether that's at lunchtime or at the end of the day. And we
Yeah,
don't
I'm
have
Well,
half-day
confused.
kindergarten. Maybe that's districts that have half-day
if
kindergarten.
if you have 2 half days versus one full day, on the 2 half days, you're busing them twice a day, both days. But if you have one full day, you're only busing them twice a day, one day. Does that make
So may
sense?
apply to districts that don't have their own buses and have contracts to bus as well.
Okay.
Oh,
We
I
have
see.
our
Yeah,
own
because I'm
autonomy.
thinking it's arrival and dismissal. So we
It's just
bus,
the 2 days instead of I won't belabor it. Um,
okay. Um, but whether we pick them up at noon or at 2, we're picking them up once. Maybe I'm not understanding the
I
question.
Katie is
think you're not
suggesting
understanding.
that
We can talk about it later.
Katie
Okay.
It's no
is
big.
saying that I think it is that instead of over a 2 day period, we bus them 4 times. Over a 1 day period, we would bus them two
Perfect.
times.
Perfectly said.
Okay. Okay.
And I apologize. It's Chair. I'm
Hi,
not on
Jerry.
camera right now,
Hi,
but
Jerry.
I've heard the same from constituents, and mine has been more about the balancing of childcare in those situations.
Okay.
So yeah, and sometimes that they seem to. I know there's a method to it, but falling on a Tuesday, like sometimes it's easier if it fell on a Friday or a Monday, but that's the second part. The main thing is the covering the childcare issue.
So would the committee like us to go back and take another look at those half-day conferences and look into the possibility of full days? For example, Thanksgiving, that week of Thanksgiving, where we would have um, a full day of conferences, for example, on the Tuesday prior to Thanksgiving, and no half day on Monday. Like a full day of school on Monday and a full day of conferences on Tuesday.
Possibly. I'm not sure. I'm also curious what does on the high school level, or do absences spike a little bit that week with the half days, or are families more likely to take someone out if there's a half day?
Excuse me for that. I would have to take a look at that
Yeah,
attendance
I'm not. Yeah,
record.
just curious.
We do a modified schedule at the high school on the half days, so they do see all 4 blocks.
Okay.
So I can't say off the top of my head whether we have a reduction in attendance on the half days, but we could certainly take a look.
Okay.
The other half, the other would be if we did a full day of conferences just prior to spring break and not, for example, like this year, it would be not March 20th, no conferences on the 20th, all the conferences on the 27th.
Yes, I guess that would have to be balanced. I don't know what kind of pressure or added stress that might add to families. So that would also be something to consider. Do you rip the Band-Aid for a full day, or do you spread out
Right. And folks
a little
might
bit?
well say they don't want the half days, but then when they see the alternative, they might not like that either.
Exactly. Yep.
I would say that it's a catch-22. Any given decision
Yep.
we make relative to the calendar, there are pros and cons to any decision. For example, when we surveyed the community several years ago about spring break, for example, because some school districts do a Wednesday, Monday spring break and not a full week. That was pretty overwhelming. But before Labor Day, after Labor Day, is not as overwhelming. People would prefer to come after Labor Day, but they also want to be done by the second Friday in June. It's a constant sort of shell game to decide what's the best method to get us to the time that we need. But we can certainly go back and take a specific look at half days if you'd like us to do that on 8-9. And in theory, we can reopen the existing approved contracts.
Calendars.
I'm sorry. We can reopen existing calendars in order to take a look at those for next year. I mean, it's not set in stone. The board has the ability to modify the calendar if you would like. And I do see Lee and Eileen's hand. So how about if I hear them and then we'll come back to that question. Lee, did you want to jump in? I think
Eileen was first.
Okay, Eileen, sorry.
That's not a big deal. The only thing I was going to ask you to do, because I know there was concern because we're starting before Labor Day, to make sure people were aware, and I don't know if this is difficult to do in your calendar or not, because I don't know what system you use it in, but like I know on the side where it has the date and it says opening day, that's bold, but I don't know if you can make the block either, like maybe the opening day and closing day, either a bolded or a different color or something to draw more attention to the fact that that is the opening day.
We can definitely do that. And I have put the calendar in every monthly newsletter, and I've gotten more direct about it in the recent calendars just to say, hey,
yes,
everybody, we're starting before Labor Day.
Just when you look at this and post it up like on your wall that I
Yes.
like to do, like
Yeah.
it pops.
I hear you.
Thank
I
you.
think we can make those adjustments to the calendar. Absolutely. Lee?
I was just going to say I very much appreciate, and Dr. Johnston will understand this one, the ESY dates being on there. That's like super helpful. Glad we have those now down. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. I think several years ago we got that feedback and we're happy to add them. And I know that's really helpful for planning purposes for families. So what are your thoughts as a group, the four of you, relative to the half days? Would you like us to go back and make another run at it to try to bring fewer half days?
I think it'd be helpful. I mean, I don't know if there's like a specific like target, like is it the ones around Thanksgiving? Is it another specific set of half days? I think the Thanksgiving ones always seem a bit odd to me. You've got like a half day, a half day, a half day. Like, yeah, and it's the same, I think, for 28, 29 is the same. It's like 3 half days in a row just before Thanksgiving.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if they're the ones that, you know, people are kind of, I think like Jerry suggests, maybe it'd be interesting to see the data around like what does attendance look like for those half days leading up? Are we seeing a big drop off or not?
I think we can certainly go back and do that. I know that Wednesday prior to Thanksgiving is a travel day for a lot of families, and that's why we didn't put any conferences on that day, including our staff. Originally, we had 2 half days.
We used to have 2 full days.
Dr. Johnson, go right ahead. I know
I'm sorry. Yeah, we used to, the way it used to be is that we basically were closed. The last day of school was the 17th. Like that, if you look at this new calendar, that Friday was the last day of school, and then we had 2 full days of conferences, K-12. But what we wanted to do in preserving the calendar was to compact that so that we got both instructional time and students weren't out of school, because for some families there was a real concern about, just as the momentum of the school year is going, you are shutting down for a week and then we shut down another week in December. That close proximity, families had some concerns around sustained memory and learning stamina. Like, we called it all kinds of things, but that's what was referenced. And so we, as a opportunity, went to the half days. The high school doesn't use the conferences. They couldn't fill them across 3 half days. So on the 17th, in 28, I'm looking at the numbers in front of me, I'm sorry, not to make it confusing, that Friday prior to Thanksgiving, the high school uses it as professional learning for their staff, but K through 8, they do conferences that day. and then so they have half day in the morning and then the 2 half days. But I think if we want to take a look at the data over the last few years, we have it. We can certainly work with Dr. Lutz and come back we already have a scheduled meeting in April, bring you that data before we move these calendars forward. We could take a look at it if that's what the committee is asking for.
There's no rush to have
I
to
think,
approve
Yeah,
the
does that
8-line
create any
calendars.
negative knock-on effects? Does that put you behind the ball on any other planning?
No, I feel very comfortable that we can come back with some data for the April meeting. And I think I'm hearing you correctly. You'd like us to take a look at it for all 3 years.
I would like that.
Yeah, we can certainly do that. No problem.
I would too. Yeah, because if absences spike 15 or 20%, that might be interesting to note.
Yeah, the only
On
thing
those
I
days.
don't know the answer. It's possible it does
Right.
or doesn't. The one thing I will say is that a holiday week, we tend to see lower attendance. I mean, our attendance never gets horrendous. Overall, we have excellent attendance, but we're well into the 90s, the mid to upper 90%. But on a holiday week, we will see families travel. And so it may or may not be attributed to them being half days, but it doesn't matter. If it helps families to make an adjustment, we're happy to do it. We're either way, we're in very good shape with regard to hours. The only other thing that I can think of, and we can get that feedback from our staff, is from a stamina standpoint, do they feel they can do full days of conferences? And does that work for families as well to be able to get in? Now, since we went to virtual conferences as an option, that's been really helpful for families, not having to leave work to come in. And so maybe we can have the best of both worlds, which is the option for the virtual conferences and being able to get a full day of school in versus a full day off, based on what you're saying. And we could look at that for the next 3 years. And is there anything else about the calendars? I apologize, my dogs are losing their minds right now. Is there anything else about the calendars that you want us to take a look at other than the half days?
I'm good. I think it's been very well thought out, and I am blown away that you have it 3 years out. Most places
totally
have it 1 or 2 years out. So well done.
Well, part of the reason for that, for your knowledge, is like we know families actually look out at graduations and then they want to make plans and proms. So we try, like there's certain weekends that families don't want to miss. So we try to get homecoming, prom, and graduation, moving up ceremonies, all of that on the calendars early. In fact, Dr. Johnson is working now with the principals on next year's activities calendar, activities and events, because families then, grandparents plan a trip out and things like that. So we really do try to be proactive and stay out 3 years out. Yeah, and they can always be changed. I mean, a number of districts actually in the last 2 months who were not originally starting prior to Labor Day this year now are. And that's because of the way the calendar is falling. So, we were proactive in that, as was the board committee from several years ago.
I'm just really sad the 4-5 rule couldn't be the 6-7 rule. That seems like a missed opportunity.
I'm fairly certain that has died. Please tell me it has. I'm pretty sure it's.
My son says yes.
I think it's either dead or on life support. Either way, there'll be a new meme soon, no doubt. All right, so we'll come back in April with 2 calendars for you to take a look at. This existing calendar and a revised one with fewer half days.
And maybe one of the things, Dr. Yannicone, we can consider is like a roll down of those half days. If it's not a spontaneous, maybe if that's what we can, like, here's what it would look in 26 versus 27 versus 28. So we can see it over time working towards a particular target.
Sure.
So
Can I
look
ask
at that too?
Because your parents here with children who I think continue to celebrate Halloween. The day of Halloween, do we have a correct pulse on that's a half day parents would prefer because they'd like to take them out of the parades and right home to get ready?
I don't feel particularly strongly about it, and maybe that's partly because it's not really a thing I did when I was a kid. But most kids don't go, and certainly in my neighborhood, kids don't go out until it's like getting dark anyway. And it's so there's always been ample time between, and in fact, because they're often going to school in their costumes, and especially when they were like my kids were younger, they're like full of anticipation. It's like, well, you've got to come home, you've got to have dinner, blah, blah, blah. And like by the time you go out, they're almost done. So that was always my experience. But
Okay.
I love the half day. It's a chaotic day, and when you have a whole day, it's too many things trying to be ready. Even though mine are now won't trick or treat anymore, knowing the trick or treaters are coming just to get everything ready and sane helps.
Okay.
So I love it.
Okay. Well, we'll take a look and come back to you with some recommendations next month.
Thank you so
Awesome.
much.
Thanks, everybody. We really appreciate your input.
Thank you. I know you have all yet again hung in there with me for this robust discussion and presentations. We were trying to be as efficient as we can. Are there any final comments or questions coming from the committee? All right. Katie, are you still agreeable to take the notes and present them at our upcoming board meeting?
I think you take the notes, but I read.
Well, you know what I mean, to read the notes and
Yes.
then, yes,
Oh, got it.
I don't
Yes,
take
I
them
am.
today.
Thank you.
Mrs. Haggerty's here taking them behind the scenes, but yes, we'll
Excellent.
get them to you.
Yes. I'm on it.
Great, thank you. I would invite public comment, but at this time, I don't believe anyone has stayed with us through the time of our meeting. And so having none, a reminder that we will see you again for this team on April the 20th. And then our final meeting scheduled for the year is scheduled for June 1st. Is there anything else before we adjourn? I appreciate the engagement and the conversation as always. It helps us do really good work to know that we have some support and then that we're going to get meaningful conversation and dialogue to help make it better for our community. So thank you all very much. Enjoy this very sunny evening and the later sunset. Have a great rest of your day. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Good night.
Bye.
We're adjourned at